Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I'm slowly starting to make my way through the 1001 movies you must see before you die book, and I'm going to do a variety of reviews of movies from that book. I'm not going to start in any particular order or in any particular decade. I'm just going to pick films that I'm able to get my hands on and do reviews. So the first cab off the rank today is Nosferatu the Vampire, and this is a remake of F.W. Murnau's 1922 silent classic of the same name, as based upon the Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was directed by Werner Herzog and stars Klaus Kinski, Bruno Gaines, Isabella Adjani, and a variety of others. The film once again focuses on Jonathan Harker, played this time by Bruno Gaines, who is sent to see Count Dracula, this time played by Klaus Kinski, to sell him a house in Wiseman, where Jonathan lives. But Count Dracula is a vampire and an undead ghoul living off men's blood. Inspired by a photograph of Lucy Harker, Jonathan's wife, Dracula moved to Windsor, bringing with him death and plague. Contemplative version of Dracula in which the vampire bears the curse of not being able to get old or die. Werner Herzog, I think, is one of the great directors. He's unique. He's able to take things and do something different with them. And this is a great example of it. Yes, he pays homage to F.W. Murnau's classic, but he also does something different with it, which I really like. It's a very visually striking film. There's some beautiful shots of the castle when Jonathan goes to see Count Dracula. There's some great use of lighting, and a lot of the lighting's to do with just candlelight that's lighting one side of a character's face or just using minimal light. And this is really effective in a lot of scenes. The only real way to watch this, in my opinion, is either on Blu-ray or a remastered version. Because even though I enjoyed the visuals of the original theatrical version of the film, I just feel with a Blu-ray or a remastered, you get a lot more out of it and get much more absorbed into it. And I think that's the best way to sort of watch this film. I like that Herzog introduced sort of the Black Death sort of plague, using rats and going into that particular city and unleashing them. I kind of like that. I thought that was a little different. I like that the castle that Dracula lives in is a bit sparse. There's not much in it. It's sort of very empty. And I like when Jonathan goes to see him and it's sort of, they play out that scene that is very memorable from, Bram Stoker's Dracula that Francis Ford Coppola did. And just that interaction between Jonathan and Dracula I really like. There's this sort of tragic beauty to the film in a lot of ways. The Dracula character is sort of this sort of tragic figure, he sort of can't help the way he is. And he wishes he could. And he can't be the person he was before he was turned into Dracula. So he sort of struggles with that and he talks about how he had to sacrifice light and the sun in order to live in darkness. And there's sort of a tragic way to live, and I kind of like that aspect to the film and to the character. One of the best things about this is the acting. I think the late Bruno Gaines, I really like. I think he does a fantastic job here as Jonathan Harker. It's the first film I've seen of him as a younger man, and I like what he's able to do in this film and with this particular character. I think Isabella Adjani is really fantastic as Lucy as well. She's really the hero of the piece. She's the character that puts things to do, and she sacrifices everything in order to save her husband and the townspeople in the town that she lives. And she's a really strong heroine in this film, and I would like to have seen more of her, but I think she serves such a big purpose within the movie. But hands down, the best acting in this and the best performance is from Klaus Kinski. This is my first foray into him as an actor. What a great way to be introduced to this particular actor. His performance here as Dracula is fantastic. The way he sort of mirrors a lot of Max Schreck that played Dracula in the 1922 version. Just the way he mirrors, the way he moves, there's a sadness in his eyes. The way he takes in things around him and expresses himself in such a great way. And there's a tragicness to him, and Kinski's just fantastic. One of the best performances in history, in my opinion. I think he's just fantastic in this and does a brilliant job. And really emotes so much without saying a lot, and you really feel a lot from this particular man and the creature he's become, that he can't help who he is. And there's just such a beautiful way he performs this. Every scene he's in, he steals. Every moment he was on screen, I just found myself just staring at him going, Like, I didn't know what I was watching, and I was so mesmerized and captivated by his performance. He drew me into the film, even in moments that I wasn't completely immersed in. He was able to draw me in. And I think that's the power of one Kinski, and the power of what Herzog was able to get out of Kinski for this performance. And the character itself, and the way that character slowly draws you into the film, and slowly draws you into what's going on. He's just absolutely fantastic, and the best thing about the movie, I was blown away by his performance and didn't expect to be as good as it was. The other things Werner Herzog sort of shakes up in this is Van Helsing appears, but he's sort of like this sort of petty and pathetic sort of character that ultimately, once everything's transpired, he dispatches Dracula, with a stake and the whole thing that you know from that sort of Dracula mythology. But what's different about this is all this happens off camera. And when he comes back down after doing it down the stairs, he's got the stake in his hand with blood on it and blood on his hands. And he's ultimately confronted by the people who run the town, and he's ultimately arrested and put into prison. And I thought that was an interesting way to do it. They sort of made him much more of a pathetic character, much more of a character who doesn't quite believe what's going on or accept it or knows what to do to change it. And it's really Lucy is the one who knows what needs to be done, and she becomes a sort of female version of Van Helsing in a way. But I kind of like that. I like that he got arrested. I like the idea that it's sort of trying to keep it in the reality, the realistic realm, that if you kill someone, there's consequences for it. The other introduced was the Black Death Plague. I really liked that. I thought that was an interesting way to go. I like all the rats that run through the city and through the town, and you see Dracula moving in and around that, and the idea he brings in all these coffins and they're filled with all these rats to infect people. I like that. I thought that was a really great idea and really great visuals in that. And like I keep saying, like, they really made Lucy the heroine. She's the one who is ultimately visited by Dracula in this really, really great, captivating scene where she's in front of the mirror and she's brushing her hair, and we see the reflection of the door in the mirror, and it opens up and there's a silhouette of Dracula's head. Then the door shuts and then there's a silhouette over the door, and then suddenly he appears next to her. And he says to her, in his creepiness with his hands and his makeup, he says, "I can free Jonathan. I can free him from, he's obviously been bitten." He said, "I can free him from that. All I want from you is I want you to show me the love, a little bit of the love that you show him." And that's the ultimatum he sort of gives her. And she fights against it and fights against it. And in the end, she can't help but succumb to what he wants, but in her way. There's a real strength to her character. And I was really impressed with this. This was something a bit different. Even to the point that she goes into a room and she draws Dracula in to bite her. And the whole sequence takes place, and he's slowly doing it. He has this sense that, the sun's sort of maybe coming up soon, but she sort of entices him back and he can't help it. And then ultimately it's too late. The sun has arrived. It sort of blinds him and affects him, and she ultimately dies. But she sets the town free. And I kind of like that. I thought she was so fantastic, such a fantastic character, and I like what they did with her. And the other difference is Jonathan Harker ultimately becomes the new Dracula in the end and rides off into the sunset, and I really love that. Herzog always is playing with things, is always trying to add something unique and different to the film he's making, to find some sort of truth and express something he may be feeling or thinking about or struggling with, and he puts it into his movies, and this is a great example of it. I was really thoroughly impressed with this film. And I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I didn't expect Kinski to be as fantastic as he was. And I didn't expect Lucy to be such a fascinating character. It's just a well-orchestrated film, well-written, put together, and shot. And it has some beautiful cinematography in it, some beautiful sequences. There's two sequences that stand out in my mind. One is when Dracula's slowly coming down the hallway in this sort of blackened hallway, and there's a bit of blue light and white light, and he just sort of floats in a way down this hallway until he stops, and the camera's right in his face and he's got light on it, and it's so fascinating and terrifying. Such a beautiful shot, and I really love that sequence. It was beautifully done. And the other shot that really stands out to me is with everything happening and all the struggles that Lucy's facing. She's sitting on the beach on this concrete chair, and she's looking out to the ocean. and all around her are gravestones and headstones of people who've died, and it's such a beautiful visual. It's so well set up and shot, and it's just mesmerizing to focus on, and there's so many sequences in that. The use of light and camera is just fantastic. There are moments of handheld camera work in this, where ultimately characters are talking or moving around a space, and he uses that camera to move with them, and it is a little shaky, but it adds to the atmosphere and what he's trying to create here. Overall, this is a fantastic film. If you're a fan of Werner Herzog and haven't seen this film, I highly recommend it. If you're slowly getting into him, this is definitely for you and definitely worth checking out. Anyway, that's all for me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit subscribe at the bottom. Follow me on Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.